Big money's accumulation starts to convert into increased prices subtly while the public is sound asleep at the switch. Even in platinum, we're witnessing the same scenario. The government has classed platinum and silver, two metals that have performed exceptionally well, as important minerals. This is interesting because it seems like the Treasury is fixing the stockpile again, even though there hasn't been much noise about it. We have covered the silver shortage extensively, but now the head of the Tocom exchange, a Japanese man, has publicly stated that neither London nor Switzerland have any platinum on hand, despite the fact that they trade 3 million ounces of deliverable spot contracts daily. US officials seem to be coming to terms with the fact that these are top objectives for the country. Therefore, it's no surprise that precious metals like platinum and silver are being hoarded. We have already discussed that. Someone whispered in his ear that the BRIC countries are doing the same thing. It would be wise for us to follow suit, especially given the current reactions of certain nations. Despite rising prices, record ETF inflows occurred in June, and Saudi Arabia purchased a large quantity of silver in May, all while the United States declared silver a national priority. Yes, there is a great deal of interest in physical metal that has not yet trickled down to the retail sector, but the global elite, including central banks, sovereign wealth funds, and exchanges, are making it crystal clear that precious metals like silver, gold, and platinum are integral to their future strategies. My guess is that they didn't too. It is not to keep prices down when you observe 8 Western banks, and I will bring up Ed Steer's chart from a few months ago again, maintaining the most concentrated position of any commodity ever traded on COMEX. Yes, it is, but they aren't worried about the price because silver has no price elasticity. A very expensive thing can be made with very little. Whether it's 500 ounces in a multi-million-dollar Tomahawk cruise missile or a fraction of an ounce in an iPhone, the overall cost of the product is significantly greater than the small incremental price of silver. It is irrelevant. They've made an effort to crush it, but there just isn't enough supply to meet demand if prices were to rise. Trading on the COMEX and the LBMA have distorted the price. I believe that the increasing price would entice investors and speculators due to the distorted true value. That is not what they desire. The ability to access silver reserves rather than the price of silver is more relevant. I know it sounds weird, but when it comes to these essential components, the availability is more important than the price. That's because it's utilized in such little amounts in the final product. But you're right, there was an effort to bury it. Someone has put a hold on it. Because it is strategically important, I believe there is now a race to acquire it once it was manipulated. Emphasis is placed. Almost anything that can conduct electricity requires it, not only electronics and electrical components. For use in military hardware, it is essential. Medical gadgets require it. I believe that Trump and his administration recognize its strategic importance due to its multi-use in solar panels and other applications. Its demand spans from the financial sector to the military and industry, making it just as important as other strategic metals. I foresee a conflict between industrials and manufacturers, producers in need of it, and investors at some time. This is indeed something that will persist. Consequently, there will be a scramble for resources between businesses like Sony, Panasonic, and Tesla. Everyone is going to wake up when hedge funds and investors start taking the opposite side in a war over the supply of a dwindling asset. Less about price and more about availability. Without warning, it vanishes. And a scarcity on COMEX quickly becomes a worldwide deficit in retail as well. Still has a ways to go. There are many excellent things to consider, but I can see that day coming. Similar markets have witnessed explosions in the past. Nickel, for instance, traded on the COMEX a few years ago. In your experience, have you ever witnessed a situation where all players in a musical chairs game seem to realize simultaneously that there weren't enough chairs? Well, that becomes a major issue when you have huge short holdings. Short squeezes cause prices to rise and fall in a vertical parabolic pattern. Here we have nickel, with the exception that LBMA essentially undid all of the transactions, which in my opinion destroyed their credibility. But that's the price you pay for interfering with nature and trying to stifle her natural processes for malicious purposes. Unrestricted market activity is essential. Suppressing free market freedom and letting these distortions emerge makes free markets seem to achieve equilibrium where it should. This is why every manipulation turns out horribly. Suppressing prices or manipulating markets for lengthy periods of time requires pushing them in the desired direction. Things get really risky if it begins to turn around while you persist in sticking to the identical program you've used before. We are now in that position. I think that's going to turn out terribly. Prices will increase significantly. You'll witness the collapse of financial institutions like hedge funds and commercial banks due to their foolish decision to short all of these. An existential danger, that is. This may have been the final straw that caused Bear Stearns to go bankrupt. From my perspective, you simply play the long game. And getting to this point has been no picnic. However, I believe that the majority of individuals would have been pleased if I had informed them a year ago that we would be beginning at $42 in early to mid-2025. In all candor, I believe it's only the start. It ought to have ended here a long time ago, but we still have a ways to go before we can tell where this ends. According to my observations, whether they be based on economic data, anecdotal evidence, or the global power dynamics between China, Russia, and India, as well as Saudi Arabia and China, there is still a great deal of untapped potential. They're all devouring silver at the rate of light speed. It would appear that the Americans are now joining in as well, at least on the COMEX. I think it will ripple out to retail eventually, and when it does, the public will be roused to action, and then the show will go off. We haven't arrived just yet, but that's good news for those of you who are hoping to diversify your holdings before prices spiral out of control. The transcription was performed by turboscribe.ai. Remove this message by subscribing to Unlimited.